Good morning, grand rising to you all. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guess it is exactly 9 a.m. GMT. Thank you for being here. So lovely to have you here. I see that the comments is full on, full on, and I love to see it. I love to see it, guys and girls, of course, not misgendering anybody, but all of the crew in the house. Purple sofa. Who hasn't yet signed the petition? Almost at 2 million. We will be talking about that petition. Oh, yes, we will. Good morning to you, Linda and Julie and Maria and Jackie and Shalini and Colin and Robert and Soul Sound and Marcuson and Fazana and John and Cece and Mama Bet and Heppelwin and Anon User. Heidi hi, campers. Heidi hi, indeed. Good morning, lovely to you as well, Mimi. Good morning to you. And Christopher, grand risings all. And Jilly MC and Carly and Lydia and Marina and Nofus and Marlena and Tony and Daniel. As quick as they're coming through the door, I'm catching them right here. And hello, of course, to the regulars, Kath and Teresa and our lovely Soul Sound, our mod, and Crazy Bunny as well. Crazy Bunny and Kevin and Daniel. How are you all, you wonderful, glorious people? And good morning, Robert. Good morning. Good morning to you all. Hello and welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. And guess, as I've already said, I am the daughter of the witches that they couldn't burn. Oh, yes, you better believe it. Welcome to our show. And we are too legit to quit. You better believe it. Boom. Thank you for being here with us. Here's what's coming up on our show today. Dr. Janine Morgan will be joining us to outline her very deep concerns on the assisted dying bill in UK Parliament this week. And she's a former GP, so I think that what Janine has to say is worth listening to. We'll also be joined by the lovely cartoonist Bob Moran. He'll be here to chew the fat with us. And former powerlifter Rosie Maria Love will be talking about her book. Where is it? Oh, here. Which is about love, actually. It's about love. And you can win a signed copy because that's the kind of people we are around here. And as already mentioned, we'll be looking at that phenomenal general election petition where you have your say. And there's also a cash consultation, which I will be urging you to take part in. Then there's a Kanye lawsuit, which is on the table. And we're talking about the enablers, the people who enable people like Sean Puff Daddy Combs. We'll be also looking at 2030, there's that year again, and geoengineering your viewer picks. And we'll be ending on, what did you do with your childhood ambitions? Did you succeed with them? Did you follow them through? Did you dismiss them? Do you still want to achieve them? We'll be looking at that. Yes, we will. Yes, we will indeed. And just to say, winner of Sian Hill's book, Activate Your RAS from Friday's show is Julia Davis from Newport. Congratulations, Julia. You'll be delighted to know, as I say, we have another signed freebie to give away today. And can I just say that I selected Julia, so basically what I did is I had all these names, dozens and dozens. There must have been about 80 people who entered this competition, which was a fantastic response. And what I did was I had all the names that you could see at the front of my emails. And then I closed my eyes and I just rolled them. I kept rolling them up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down until I stopped. And it stopped on Julia's name. And there you go. Not particularly scientific method, but I thought it was probably the fairest at the moment. And can I just say that some of those emails that I read, they touched my heart so much. We are absolutely blessed to have such amazing people as part of our audience. Truly, we are. And I wanted to show you this because I thought it was lovely. This was from Martin. And Martin said, I don't usually enter competitions, but I thought I'd get in contact. And let me just show that on a wider screen. Let me just add that. There you go. And he said, I was listening to your show in a candlelit greenhouse, preparing it and ensuring it's safe for the weekend's storm. He did quotes around storm because we know why, right? And Martin said, when I heard Sian talking about a book, I began to think about the extreme highs and lows of the pendulum of my life. And just to say, without going into any great detail, because I don't know whether he'd want me to or not, but just to say that Martin has lost a loved one this year. He talks about the impact that has had on him. And he said, you often speak about subjects that resonate with me with my first-hand experiences and beliefs, something that can be reassuring, just knowing that other people see beyond the smoke and mirrors rather. It gives me hope that truth will rise. Indeed, it will, Martin. Martin is from Coventry, West Midlands. I just thought that was a lovely picture because that's where he listens to Wake Up. Yeah. Greenhouse still intact, thankfully. Is it a bit blowy there, Shug? Hearts to Martin, says Jackie. Hearts to Martin, indeed. And yeah, please enter today's competition as well. It's brilliant. I love giving away stuff, and I love it when my guests agree to give away stuff as well. And talking about where do you watch, this is from lovely June. June is often in our comments, and this is where June watches us, right? In fact, this is where she was watching on Friday. Said, finally got my laptop to work on LNER Wi-Fi. And here's a picture to prove it before I went back to the beginning, as I didn't want to miss anything. We like that, June. We absolutely do. And you can see lovely Sean on the screen there. And June is going to be in Walthamstow. Oh, actually was this weekend with her son and granddaughter. She's going to be 5 very soon. Happy birthday, June's granddaughter. June, of course, is from Wellbeing in York. And that is where June was watching Wake Up on Friday, which is lovely to see. I love seeing it. Please send me your pictures. Please send me your pictures. Oh, yeah, Gary, we're going to be talking about assisted dying. Good day, MK Ultra. How are you? And hello, B. And Crafty Kim. Car broke down in that storm. Did it really? Whoa. I mean, thing is, right, is that it was actually quite stormy, in all fairness. It really was. Right, what else? We're gonna come to, actually, yes, we will talk about this petition. We might need to talk about it again afterwards. So basically, call a general election. I would like there to be another general election. I believe the current Labour government have gone back on the promises they laid out in the lead up to the last election. Nearly 2 million signatures in the last 2 days. I mean, it is quite phenomenal. I asked people on social media what they thought about it. Let me read you some of them. Worthy said, I'd sooner millions contact their local MP. Jules said, this petition won't see us going to the polling booths again, but it's another, as if he needs another clear signal. His socialist globalist methods are extremely unpopular. And of course, what this is people literally like saying, no, we do not want Keir Starmer. He's absolutely awful. He's absolutely horrendous. I mean, obviously, there are so many issues attached to petitions, not least because it gives people the notion that something is happening when oftentimes it isn't. I mean, for one example, they had 6 million signatures to get us out of Brexit, and that failed. That was 6 million signatures. But let me carry on reading these comments because I think they're important. Astria said, disgust in any lack of public morality or ethics when people had enough already from the previous government and wokeism, the ideology of WEF, WHO, UN, plus Labour's bourgeois ministers demanding billions from poorer colonies while subbing farmers from countries who could poison us. Oh, I couldn't have said that about myself, frankly. And San said, as useful as a chocolate teapot, people want to be heard, so they petition. Government ignores them. And Penelope said, pointless as voting. They are all selected, not elected. And Steve said it's pathetic. And after former MP Edwina Curry also called the petition pathetic, campaigner Sunny Clarabelle said, no, the petition isn't pathetic. It's fantastic. It has reached nearly 2 million signatures in a very short space of time. It is telling the government and Starmer that they are beyond useless and they need to listen to the people, says Sunny. And Ryan said it may achieve nothing in terms of democracy, but it's a huge embarrassment for the WEF government. And Information Chaser, who is Marcuson in our comments, said, this is just too broken to fix, Sonia. Tear it down. The English Way said it serves 2 purposes, as a lifter of spirits and a warning shot across the bows. And I think to a degree that I think we need a lifter of spirits, don't we? And it does send a huge message, whether, I don't for a second think anything's going to be done about it. What do you think in the comments? It won't cause an election, but it shows our unity and our unhappiness, says Mama Bear. Nobby says, could you get a Labour voter on and ask them why they voted for their own destruction? Well, the problem is, Nobby, is they've all got buyer's remorse. Nobody wants to talk about it too much publicly, do they? Catherine said, whether or not the petition is heard, the message is loud and clear. Psychologically, that's important for those in power, but more importantly, for the masses to know they are not alone. And that really, I think, sums it up, frankly. I think that You can think it's useless, as indeed many petitions are, absolutely useless. But it gives people a sense of unity. It gives people a sense that at least something is being heard. Because at the moment, it really feels like we're on a train track to nowhere, doesn't it? Or actually not to nowhere at all. Exactly to their destination. That's the difference. So I'm going to welcome in our first guest, because this is something that our viewers are deeply, deeply concerned about, and that is the assisted dying debate, which finally rocks up in Parliament at the end of the week. And who better to discuss this with than a former GP who has deep concerns about it? And here she is. Good morning, Janine. How are you?
Good morning, Sonia. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. Dr. Janine Morgan, as I say, a former GP. And Janine, you have very deep concerns, as indeed do many of us. We are deeply worried. But so let me just give some background. This Friday, November the 29th, MPs will vote on the assisted dying bill for the first time. This is a proposed law to give terminally ill people in England and Wales the right to choose to end their life. A separate bill is under discussion in Scotland. People are very divided on this, Janine. Where do you stand?
Well, I'm against this bill. I think as a doctor, our first duty is to do no harm. I'm a Christian, and obviously the Ten Commandments tell us, "Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill." So, you know, but the problem with this bill is that it's coming at a time when we have seen some very disturbing things happening in care of the elderly and care of the vulnerable. We were all locked down. We didn't know what was happening to our families. People were watching. You couldn't see, be with their family that were dying. We didn't know what was happening in terms of what medications were being given.
We're being asked to trust people. You're absolutely right. We're being asked to trust people who have already shown us that they can't be trusted. And I know it was a different government in place during C19, but they all voted for it. They were all absolutely in support of what took place. And obviously what you're referring to is the DNRs that were placed on people. And it is deeply concerning, isn't it, Janine? I've been looking at this assisted dying bill and the process that it would need to go through. So what it says is you need to be over 18 and live in England and Wales and have been registered with a GP for at least 12 months. You need to have mental capacity and you need to make 2 separate declarations. Now, this would go before a High Court judge, must hear from at least one of the doctors and can question the dying person or anyone else considered relevant. But Janine, as a former GP, this is literally taking our healthcare in a completely different direction. It is now essentially, it will be rather, down to one person, a judge and a doctor, whether somebody lives or dies. That's phenomenal, isn't it?
Exactly. And as a doctor, I wouldn't want to be held responsible for taking someone else's life. That is not that is not what doctors should be doing. And who therefore is going to do it?
Well, now that's interesting you say that. So if you were still a GP, would you refuse to take part in this if it were law?
I would refuse. Yes, I would refuse. I wouldn't want to be involved in this.
I wonder where that would leave you legally.
I really don't know. I haven't looked into that aspect of this at all. But I would leave the profession rather than do this.
Wow.
That's what my position would have been if I was still in the profession. I would have left.
I'm going to read one of your tweets. It said, retired GP, I do not like this bill. There is no way that those in health provision should be involved in killing people. And there is no safety clause that can protect the vulnerable from being killed. We are all vulnerable at end of life. Better palliative care is required. And I think that last line is the key here. What's going wrong with palliative care then?
Again, I haven't practiced for a number of years now, so I don't really know generally what is happening in palliative care, but I was aware that people were not receiving what was necessary to keep them as comfortable as they could be kept. And I know that there are some circumstances where that is extremely difficult at end of life. I've a recent experience of somebody who I know very well who was in that situation, and she was in a hospice receiving palliative care, but it was a very difficult end. But I think what people don't appreciate is and I didn't appreciate actually, is that when you talk about ending someone's life with euthanasia, it is not a gentle business. So this is another issue that people don't appreciate, I think.
I think also what's interesting is palliative care is assisted dying, isn't it? Surely what's being offered here is assisted suicide.
Well, I think there is a subtle difference. We know that the drugs that we give to people to palliate their symptoms will, by necessity, because they reduce their ability to breathe and so forth, will probably end their life sooner than it would have done if they hadn't received any drugs. But I think there is a subtle difference between giving enough medication to keep a person comfortable and actually intending to kill them.
Right. There certainly is. What do you make of the fact that, let me just get this information in front of me. What do you make of the fact that both the BMA, the British Medical Association, and the Royal College of Nursing have neutral positions on assisted dying? Do you think they should have neutral positions?
Oh, I think that's a very difficult one. I think ethically, anyone who is involved with in a medical from a medical aspect should be using the medical ethics of do no harm, first do no harm, and I'm not an ethicist, so I can only I'm not an expert on ethics, so I can't really tell you what
it's very difficult, isn't it? I'm very fortunate. I have a very good doctor, but a lot of doctors, they've been completely remiss, certainly over the last 4 years. There was a failure in medicine to protect people in many regards, which is why, as we said at the start, there are deep concerns in handing over our lives literally to people that we seriously cannot trust. And that is a problem. I think that there is such a lack of faith in doctors these days, which is really alarming. You must notice that.
Well, yes, I think that actually the doctors who I've been involved with myself have been amazingly excellent, and I would trust them. But we do hear some stories that do make you wonder, and you hear that the whole ethos of medicine has changed, that it's all about the not the individual, but I was going to say it's not about the individual but the common good. So
So they
where
tell us.
we focused on the individual, the patient. Now doctors are being taught that they should focus on what is for the common good, and they more and more, we are taught that this was introduced with QALYs, where you many years ago, your right to treatment was based on whether you you were better qualified effectively to have treatment more than another person. So the whole ethos of medicine has changed over the years, and it doesn't seem to me that we can any longer, as individuals, trust our doctors in the same way.
How sad. What a damning indictment. I mean, I know, Janine, because I follow you on X, but you have a much broader understanding of what's going on, including regarding BlackRock and all of these, how our elected representatives are compromised, hugely compromised. But I wanted to ask you this. There is a huge advertising campaign for this assisted dying. And it's interesting. Guido Fawkes noted that Dignity in Dying, which is the main campaign group, of course, has had an advertising spend of £650,000 on social media. That's a huge amount of money. There are other interests behind this, because Dignity in Dying is not a big group. So there are other interests financing this, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very strange, and I understand that it's actually taxpayers' money that's been spent. So that seems another odd thing to me. I don't know why one side of the argument can be promoted and not the other. That doesn't seem right either. And I think my fear is that particularly vulnerable groups, and we're all vulnerable when we are at end of life, but people who are disabled, people who, what we're seeing around the world in other places is that, for example, in Canada, we hear, I mean, I don't know what truth there is in this, but we hear that people who are homeless, who are depressed, who have difficulties with money are being offered.
Difficulties with weight, absolute madness they're offering people. And this is the problem. Once again, I think we're almost going to end where we started, and that is we're expecting to trust the people who have already shown us we simply cannot trust with our health. And that is the problem, I think.
Yes, I mean, as I say, the doctors I've come across, I would trust, but with giving me care for the condition that they're giving me care for, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to ask a doctor to end my life.
No.
And I wouldn't want to ask doctors to end other people's lives.
Right. It's a tall order. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't seem the right role for a doctor or anyone. And I mean, we haven't had hanging or the death penalty in this country for many years now, and quite rightly so, because mistakes can be made. Well, I know many people who have been given a terminal diagnosis, for example, and who have thought at the time perhaps that they would rather end their life, but then have gone on to live very many years afterwards.
Right.
And actually have had, very joyous moments in their lives during that time, have done lots of good things during that time, have managed to have holidays, have managed to spend good time with family, quality time with family, have produced works of art, have helped others who are sick and disabled.
Right.
So, you know, we don't know when our end is going to be. And I think really we shouldn't be asking doctors to make that decision. And I don't know who else they're going to, you know, who else. You can't have a hangman effectively.
No, you can't. So just before you leave us, Janine, what's your sense? My sense is they won't get this through Parliament this time, but they'll come back at it again in a few years' time. What do you think?
Well, I pray that they don't get it through. I really do pray that. And I think it's the wrong way forward. I really do think what we need investment in is better palliative care. We need better, you know, investment in social care. Better investment for the vulnerable in the society.
We certainly do.
And we have a big problem in that, as we mentioned earlier, we have this big organization above us, BlackRock and all the big investment companies, who are sucking money out of every country on earth into their own.
But cheer up, because we've just gone in partnership with them, so all is looking good in that regard.
No, exactly, Sonia. I can't believe that our Prime Minister has actually admitted that we are in partnership with an organisation like BlackRock, which is one of the organisations that's invested in war, invested in taking over other people's lands, invested in taking our farmland,
right,
and all these things. And this is common. You know, this is not conspiracy. This is actually happening around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. BlackRock suicide pods incoming, said MT70. I will be shortly showing you a suicide pod. Janine, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate. We understand it's a very emotive topic. It certainly is. But I think that somebody with your experience, really important to hear your voice in this. Everybody, it's former GP, Dr. Janine Morgan. Take good care of yourself, Janine. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you for having me here.
You too. Take care. Take care. Right. I know you're asking me there to ask her about the COVID-19 jabs, but this is the YouTube live stream, people. You know what that means. Medical misinformation. But my understanding, actually, from her ex, if I'm accurate, is that she was onto all of that and not dealing with, she wasn't a GP then anyway, so she wasn't administering. Yes. You've heard my voice, says Marie. Listen, let me just show you this before I bring in our next guest, because this, I think, is exactly what we need to be concerned about. This is a suicide pod. We talked about it before. It's the Sarco suicide capsule. It's causing a stir in Switzerland. It's been promoted by an Australian doctor. Rather odd device. I think they've already had one test run that went badly wrong. And essentially, it not only is a pod in which somebody kills themselves, but it also doubles as a coffin. That's nice, isn't it? Literally, they're like, the level of dehumanization that is taking place around this is absolutely disturbing. Looks like a Dyson. It does actually, says Crazy Bunny. It actually does. SpaceX pod. But it's coming to the UK, says the creator. MPs claim assisted dying bill is so well supported, it is likely to be passed. I don't think it will. I'd be surprised if they do that, by the way. And just before we bring in Bob, what about this? This is, guys, who does this look like? Apparently, scientists at Princeton University have reconstructed this 3D model of how Adam, the first human being created by God, according to the book of Genesis, of course, might have looked. That to me looks like a cross between Elon Musk and Prince William. Like, honestly, these people have such godlike complexes. I would not be at all surprised if Princeton University fashioned it in them. Reminds me of some dystopian film. Looks like a jet ski, says Hatchie. It does, doesn't it? Yes, Elon, the Antichrist, says MT70. Shug, I don't know what to tell you, but can you see Elon and William both in there? Gilly, it is awful days at the moment, which is why we have to fight back. We have to fight back. And the thing is we got some brilliant people in order to be able to do that. And I'm going to welcome in one of them right now. Here he is. But I'm going to take Elon Musk off there. There you go. There he is.
Oh, thank you.
Bob Moran. How are you, Bob?
Hi, Sonia. I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Well, do you know what? It's absolutely lovely to have you with us. The thing about you, Bob, is you're so uncompromising, so unapologetic about who you are, what you stand for. Let me give some background for those who are unfamiliar. Bob is a cartoonist. He's an illustrator. I think he's actually one of the best illustrators that we have currently who is depicting what is going on in our society. Bob, you know I'm a major fan of yours. Absolutely, I am. And can I just say that this is one of my favorite images? And what's curious about this, I love things that are synchronistic, right? This We Are Awake, right? Obviously, this is called Wake Up, but I'm also a Leo the Lion. So this is one of my personal favorite images because I just feel that that is talking to me. We Are Awake and a lion. This, of course, is Bob's fantastic book, edited by the wonderful Tanya Edwards, who was with us last week. And Bob, as many people know, was at the Daily Telegraph for, you know, that new bastion of free speech, which I'm sure we'll get a comment from Bob about. Bob was with them for a decade, and they essentially sort of shat all over him when he was prepared to speak out over C19. Bob, again, we're on YouTube, so we have to be really careful what we say about C19 because they're ridiculous medical misinformation policy. But you're doing all right, aren't you, out the other side?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I mean, the great thing now is I'm totally free, creatively and in terms of what I put out in the world and when I put it out. So there's no restrictions on me at all. And I think I write in my book that one of the things I've come to understand is when the world really needs satire, and you need satire to be effective, it has to come from the periphery. It has to come from the outside. You can't be part of the machine trying to do effective satire when you realize that the machine itself is a big part of the problem. So that's what I'm most grateful for now, really. And yeah, the book's out. It's been out for a few weeks now, and it's going down really well. And the lovely thing is that a lot of people are finding the book who haven't necessarily been on board with the arguments up until now. You know, they're not awake, as we might call them, but they're coming along to book signings and things and having a look. And you can see them reluctant at first, and then they maybe laugh at one cartoon, and then maybe laugh at a couple more. And then they come over and ask to buy a book because, you know, people are starting to get curious now. They're a bit more open about these ideas than they were before, which is really nice to see.
It could take a while, can't it? Sometimes. I mean, because you're so in your face, right? You don't, like, as I say, you're uncompromising, which is one of the reasons that I absolutely, because we need people who are uncompromising. Because as you say, right, a lot of people are turning to the system to help resolve problems that the system created. And I think, actually, I just want to comment from you about that petition, which is nearly 2 million. You're not a great fan of petitions, are you?
No, I'm not. I've done a cartoon. One of my best loved cartoons, probably for the last few years, is on this subject of people signing petitions and you know, asking the government that's oppressing them to debate whether or not they should carry on oppressing them or doing whatever it is. I'm not a big fan of petitions at all. Yeah, I did notice this yesterday, this petition to have another general election. I'm not really sure what that's about. I don't know why people want another election.
I suppose it's just the desperation of wanting to get Keir Starmer out, isn't it? Because as you and I know, who would they put into place? Just another, you know, a globalist weffer. But 2 million is a huge volume in 2 days, isn't it? It's significant.
Yeah, which is understandable, I suppose, because so many people on both sides are disgusted at what this government has been doing. It's just, from my point of view, that's all intentional. That Keir Starmer's been brought in to be as ridiculous and hypocritical and communist as he possibly can be, to generate this massive distrust and dislike of domestic politicians. And I think the goal is to make people feel like they don't have any other options. so that it's to try and move them more and more towards this idea of supranational organizations and ultimately one world government. This is how they're going to do it, is just create a situation where our own politicians are so hopeless and tyrannical. It's happening in other places as well, in other countries where people feel there's just no option now and all their politicians are just dreadful and corrupt. And you can see that that's the way that it's going.
And the same with our media as well. And obviously, you and I, we both have a background in mainstream media. I mean, as I say, you were at the Telegraph for 10 years, a decade.
Yeah.
Political cartoonist there. You're not going to get much more establishment media than the Telegraph, right?
No.
How must it feel to be outside of that now? There must be, other than the freedom that you have, what about your mindset? Has that changed?
Yeah, my whole mindset's changed, obviously, in the way I look at the world and politics and media in particular. Once you're outside of the system, you can totally see how it operates and how much it's actually the enemy of the truth and the enemy of integrity and these things, and how amazingly hypocritical it all is. I mean, you take this the example of the Telegraph right now. Championing Alison Pearson and defending her over this story about the police getting involved over some of her social media posts. And of course, that's ostensibly the reason I was fired by the Telegraph, was because I wrote some tweets some people didn't like. Not nasty enough for the police to get involved, but I was just sacked. Whereas when Alison Pearson does it, they sort of decide to start this big campaign trying to alert people to how terrible this is, that people are being policed and cancelled and over their social media posts. It's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. I think what it does, though, is it tells us about the other powers and the other influences that are operating on the Telegraph. We know that British media, by and large, is hugely supportive of the Zionist agenda. We know that absolutely, and you're not. You've been not only very outspoken, but your work has depicted how awful, horrendous, hideous you find the whole thing. And I would suggest that may have played a part in it, is that your politics didn't entirely align with what's going on at the Telegraph. Do you think there might be some truth in that?
Well, as far as the Israel Gaza question is concerned, that had never really come up while I was at the paper. It wasn't. I don't think I ever drew any cartoons about that situation while I was there, and then from 2020 onwards, that was not really an issue, and it kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? All of a sudden, last October, everyone was talking about it, and it became a big thing. I'd not commented on it before. I don't know. I wonder now whether certain people always knew that eventually this Israel question was going to come up, and certain people would be on board and certain people wouldn't be. I mean, I was really shocked by certain characters, Alison Pearson being one of them, and the way they reacted when this happened, and seemed to start to go against all of the values and principles they'd been claiming to hold for the previous 3 years, being against tyranny and lockdown, and absolutely campaigning for the protection of children, and under no circumstances can children be harmed. There's no excuse for it. And then all of a sudden, actually, yeah, all these children are terrorists. Let's kill them all. I didn't understand it at all.
Right. That tells us they were never interested in the children in the first place, right? Because a child is a child, regardless of where they live, where they come from, what politics are overshadowing them. So, and I felt the same way about the whole gender critical movement, who kept going on about this is about saving children. Then suddenly it turns out a whole load of them are Zionists and they don't care about bombs raining down on children. And so that was when I realized this isn't about children at all. And I think the whole thing is interesting. And I do think that the Israeli lobby, the influence over our British Parliament, over our British media, is tremendous and huge. And I'm so glad that because you and I talked about this before when we met at a festival before, and we talked about your experience. And what makes me so happy, Bob, is you are an absolute resounding success outside of the Telegraph, right? You're making, I think to my understanding, you're making way more money than you were. Your work is getting out there. It's much more edgy. It's much more cutting edge, and you're able to be much more yourself. Go on, say what were you going to say?
Yeah, that's true. And I think there are quite a lot of people, Sonia, who are like very clever, intelligent people who have principles, who feel stuck in the media now, who feel stuck in a mainstream role. And because it is frightening, and if you're working for any of those institutions, they work very hard to make you feel like you couldn't possibly survive outside. You'd be nothing without us. And this is one of the great things about the book, and really bringing all my work from the last few years together, and having lots of people looking at it, is to try and encourage those people to be brave enough to step out and go it alone, because you can now. I'm doing it, you're doing it. The nature of the media world that's been created with the internet is that if you have an audience and you've got some talent and some skills and you're interesting and you have something to say, you can go it alone and make it work. And I think it'd be great if more people were brave enough to take that step, because I think that's what we need going forward.
And I think what's interesting, Bob, is that you have to take that leap, because when you're in mainstream media, it's nice, isn't it? To a certain degree, you get your regular salary. I was at ITM for 8 years, very nice every month,
Yeah.
an amount rocked up in my bank account. It was very comfortable, but I wasn't comfortable. And that was the reality. And I clashed with them over C19. And it was basically a choice of I stopped making the social media posts and the videos, the independent videos I was making, or I'd have to leave. And I literally told them 2 words. One began with F and the other with O. And it was time to go, but you make that leap. And when you make that leap, for the most part, if your intentions are good, I've discovered that people catch you. That's what happens. And I love doing this. This is the first time I've actually felt free. I think truly free, even with the restrictions of YouTube, because I kind of know how to navigate them for the most part. And it's a wonderful feeling, isn't it? Just being able to kind of get up in the morning and it's like, I don't have to work to somebody else's agenda. What do I want to say? And that's a wonderful feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wonderful. And it's freeing. And the interesting thing is it means you have to take a lot more responsibility. I mean, when you work for a big brand and a corporation and you're working with editors and your ideas are being vetted, and that's hard because there's censorship and there's restriction, but you have that protection. You've got a team of lawyers. You know that you can always turn around and say, oh, the editor told me to do that, wasn't really my idea. When you're on your own, you've got to own everything you do. You take responsibility for everything you do. But the more responsibility you take, actually, the freer you become.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's one of the ideas that they've kind of attacked and tried to make people forget over the last few years. But, responsibility goes hand in hand with freedom. So the more you give away, which people are constantly being encouraged to do now, give away responsibility, the less
including for their own lives.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, and I have my audience that's very big now, and I have very loyal fans. But the interesting thing is that I'm not necessarily I'm not always trying to draw what I think they want to see, and please them. I have to kind of be willing to challenge their ideas as well. Again, this is what satire has to do. It's not just, you can't just reflect what you think that your fans are thinking back at them. Sometimes you have to challenge maybe some of their ideas and the things that they're doing. Like at the moment, people obviously know I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump.
I was literally going to come to Magadon.
Magadon, yeah, the
right.
demon.
The only reason I'm not showing this, I'd love to show this image, but the only reason I'm not is YouTube will do me probably for the image because he's naked. But it's a powerful image. This is a new project you're working on, right?
Yeah, this is a series. I thought I'd do something slightly different and create more of a series of images with a running theme. And so there are these great old etchings, illustrations that were done in the 1800s of the demons, of the kind of hierarchy of demons from hell, as people used to believe in. So I thought, well, I could do a modern version of that, basically, and kind of depict some of our world leaders and different characters on the world stage as these demons, and write little descriptions and, come up with names for them. And I rather boldly thought, well, let's start with the Donald Trump one, because everyone's talking
Very
about
boldly.
it.
I mean, it is bold. You're absolutely right. And but here's the thing: is I actually believe that true artists are not playing to the crowd. They're not necessarily reflecting what everybody wants from them. They're drawing on what is inside of them. At the core of you. This is the stuff that moves you, that touches you, that makes you angry. I know what you're like, Bob. I've seen you on social media. You literally, you can be so uncompromising, but I think that's what people like about you, because so many people, it turns out, are weak as anything when push comes to shove, but you're not. You stand up and you are counted.
Yes. Sometimes it's confusing for people, because I know what you mean. I can be very forthright and even aggressive on social media sometimes when I post, and then when people meet me in real life, they're sometimes a bit confused because they're expecting me to be like that, and I'm actually quite a gentle chap. So maybe that's my secret weapon. I don't know.
It is a weapon. I think it's an important weapon in the world that we're living in. And I want to talk about the whole issue of cancel culture, because even though, as we say, your life is infinitely better now, you have freedom, you have all of those things. But like you say, you don't have that machinery to back you up, do you? Because obviously when what happened to Alison Pearson happened, like you say, there's little lawyers and all manner of things. And Toby Young and his free speech union gets involved, and everybody, all manner of like very establishment organizations and people all rally round. You don't have that. You don't have that same backing anymore. You forfeited that by, essentially being booted out of the Telegraph, right?
Yes, I did. And, I mean, what's the point, though, in doing something like what I do if you're not going to take some risks, and you're not going to be, you have to be willing to be controversial and to be attacked. And even, I don't know if you remember this, but earlier this year, obviously, when I put out the cartoon about Netanyahu and the genocide,
one of my favorites,
all of that, there was a lot of pushback. A lot of people got very upset, and several people reported it to the police.
Yeah, these free speech people like Laura Dodsworth, right?
Yeah, who were very, very good friends with Alison Pearson. And I don't know whether Alison contacted the police, but it wouldn't surprise me if she did, because so that whole group, who are now up in arms about what's happened to Alison, called the police on me for drawing a picture.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's
the hypocrisy of it, isn't it? Like you say, for the last 4 years, somebody like Alison Pearson was apparently standing up for our rights. But then it turns out that those rights only extend so far. And it's interesting. So you have suffered cancellation, because obviously your show, Art Apocalypse,
yes.
Right? I mean, I saw that at the Bloomsbury with my daughter. We loved it. We thought that had so many brilliant emotional peaks and troughs to it. It was absolutely wonderful. And it was so well received. But Tanya was saying last week that when you were booked to play again at the Bloomsbury, they pulled. Have I remembered that correctly?
Well, we, after we'd done the Bloomsbury and it had gone so well, and we were supposed to go to Newcastle, that was cancelled. That we tried to get some other places, and we were struggling last minute, and we knew that the Bloomsbury had some vacant Saturdays, and obviously we've already done 2 nights there. We've sold it out. It went really well, so we went back to them and said, can we come back and do it again? And they said, no way, basically you're never coming here again. We don't want to know. And then the trouble is, once you've been publicly cancelled by a theatre like that, as happened with Newcastle, none of the others want to get in touch with you. They all know about it.
That's
so
horrible.
It's a real shame. The show, I was really proud of the show. We had a great time making that, and as you say, it went down so well with audiences. I would do it again, but only if I was sort of invited to do it by someone who owns a venue, because it's aside from anything else, it takes up so much of your time being cancelled like this.
It's so emotionally draining, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you go through a plethora of emotions when you experience that. Because I've had venues that was due to speak at that were cancelled as well. So you go through such a plethora of emotions, but ultimately, I just always rock up at like righteous indignation. How dare they? That's
Yeah.
always my position on it. Because look, Bob, you're not out there. You're not calling for people's, lives to be terminated or anything like that. What you are doing is
Right.
you are beautifully illustrating the grave injustices that are taking place in our society. What is not to love about that?
Well, yeah, and the thing about the show is it was deliberately tailored to be accessible for anyone, no matter where they were coming from on the opinion spectrum or the awake spectrum. So we wrote it very carefully to appeal to people who found this stuff controversial, or went along with everything, didn't think there was anything wrong with the lockdowns or masks or the jab rollout or anything like that. And it worked. So, people came to the show who didn't know my work, who weren't on side at all, and they loved it. And afterwards they said, "You've changed my mind, or at least you've made me understand where you guys are coming from. I'm going to start looking into this now. I think about it differently." So that was really powerful. And I think that is probably the reason they didn't want it touring around. Precisely because it's sort of
Exactly that.
family friendly.
Exactly that. I'm being urged to show some of your cartoons. I mean, there's so many brilliant ones here. One of my favorites was during C19, where I think the couple are on the hill, right? And it's about never be parted from your family again.
Yeah, never surrender your right to be with the people you love.
That's right. Oh, there's just so many people, David. You have to get this book. I mean, they're absolute genius. Bob, have you got a particular favorite on a particular page that I could show?
Oh, well.
I mean, they're just so good. Look at this.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson dancing. Right. No. Let me. Boris Johnson dancing right here. Right. And in the background, you've got employment, rest in peace. Facts, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Children, freedom, rest in peace. Dignity, rest in peace. Where they're all dancing around, right? I mean, they're just so good. But what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
It's really hard for me. I don't know if I have a favorite necessarily, because they're all I feel slightly different. And it depends what they go and do in the world. Some of them I love doing myself. I've really enjoyed creating them. Others, it's because once they go out, they have a big impact. They mean a lot to people. So I don't really have a favorite.
This is powerful as well. This whole Russian man bad, right? And
Yeah.
There's Biden and obviously Trudeau in his blackface. I mean, it's those elements that you capture people when you get that kind of blackface. There's Boris Johnson. One of the funniest is your image of Rishi Sunak. He's just this tiny little creature, right?
I kept making him smaller and smaller as time went on until you could barely see him at all. And then luckily he disappeared, so I didn't have to kind of get my magnifying glass and make him super small. But yeah, I think that's the the good thing about the book is it takes you through the 4 years. It's kind of an alternative narrative. It's a historical record. But you also really see my thought process as it goes on, where I started from, which is still in the mainstream, still at the Telegraph, never expecting anything like this could ever happen. We weren't I didn't think we were in a world where this stuff was possible. And then kind of gradually coming to terms with the extremity of it, how bad it was. And you can just see how my thoughts develop with this kind of running thread of these underlying principles and values that I tried to carry through everything. And I think that's powerful now, to just have a book of, I draw to think. I've always drawn to think. That's how I make sense of the world. And so going through this book, you basically have one man thinking incredibly deeply about something over 4 years, which I think is quite a valuable thing to have now, because Sonia, people just aren't thinking anymore.
Absolutely. This, I think, would make a fantastic Christmas present for anybody, awake or not, frankly. And as we say, you are doing signings. I think you've got one coming up this week. Let me check. You're in Old Street Tavern in Ludlow on Friday, I think that is.
Ludlow on Friday. Yes, that's right.
4 p.m. onwards. Yeah. And you obviously sign your books. You made a lovely message for me, and I was very grateful for that, because I am a genuine fan of yours, Bob. Like you, I kind of pull no punches. If I don't like somebody, they usually know it. And because I'm just kind of built that way. I suspect you and I are probably on some kind of spectrum, actually, Bob. Highly likely. But there's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong at all. Bob, leave us with a message. What do you want to say to people?
I think just be on your guard about what's coming down the pipeline. This is, don't put your trust in people who've already demonstrated that they can't be trusted, and who have already broken promises, and they've shown you who they are. This is a bit of a pivotal moment as far as I'm concerned. And the big question is, can you stay afloat when all these people are trying to drag you under? Because this is an endurance test, really, and people have to stay true to their principles, and keep their eyes open, and don't be deceived by wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what I would say.
Couldn't have said it better myself, everybody. This is the formidable Bob Moran. Lovely to see you with us, Bob. Keep up the great work. I'm not that you need telling at all, because I know you will anyway. And I am genuinely happy that people have shown their appreciation to you and made this possible, because you, like me, you're a father, right? So you want to be able to leave at least a decent legacy for our children.
Yeah, that's right. My children do like looking at my book, even though
I bet they do.
Images are suitable for children.
Who said, right? Who said? I mean, they can see, strippers half naked on a pop show. So who's to say that your book is less suitable for them than something like that? But that's probably a discussion for another time. But I take your point. Everybody, it's Bob Moran. Take good care of yourself, Bob. Have a brilliant week. Lovely to see you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Sonia. Take care.
Lovely to see him. Absolutely lovely to see. I think he's genius level. I actually think, as an illustrator, I think he is genius level. And you trust no one, do you? Only Jesus. Is that you, Mikey? Don't let them grind you down, says Gary. Bob's book will be a collection item soon in future, says HK Very. The Hunger Games is real, Marcuson. It is. And Marcuson, seeing as you're here, right? And before we bring in our next guest,
you can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
Good morning, Grand Risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton, Sonia Poulton.
I love that. I know it's part AI, part human, and all the things that I'm supposed to detest, but actually I really love it. And I literally, Marcus, and you don't know this, when I've been going out at events, people have been singing Good Morning Grand Risings to me, which is lovely. Absolutely lovely. How are you all in the comments today? That woke my cat up, says the Blue Nomad. No nudes is good news, says Daniel. Like politicians, puppet in Muppets clothing. I'm going to be singing this all day, says Jackie, because it NLPs us, doesn't it? That's the problem. AI is fun, says Mad Duck. Yes, Marcuson. Absolutely brilliant. Ian says it sounds naff, Marcuson. Sort him out. I really, really need to finish my jingle, but AI is kind of bugging me, says Soul Sound. Why does Jack say that? Who's Jack? Did I miss something to do with Jack? What did I miss? Right. Before we bring in our next guest, I wonder if I've got time just to cover this story. I will cover this story. Kanye West accused of trying to dodge justice after ex-assistant sued him for, in quotes, rape at a Diddy party. And the question is Kanye West doing all he can to avoid being served? Yes, say those representing his former assistant, influencer, and former OnlyFans star Lauren Picciotto, who alleges that West raped her at a Diddy party and also sexually harassed and stalked her while she worked for West in 2021 to 2022. And she's detailed his alleged obsessions with her and his fetish for also wanting to sleep with his girlfriend's mums, including his wife, Bianca Censori. That's nice, isn't it? That would be nice to know that your fella wants to sleep with your mum. And there's a new filing. And as I say, they claim, Picciotto's lawyer, Mark Carini, says that West is trying to avoid it. West is currently believed to be in Japan. Carini wrote in the procedural document that as West was evading being served, he would ask the court to allow the case to proceed anyway. He wrote, plaintiff will apply to the court ex parte in early December 2024 with a declaration regarding attempted service and the request to serve via publication. And courts are often reluctant to do this. They require strong reasons why it's the only option of notifying the defendant that they are being sued. But given the absolute exhaustive press coverage around this and West's statements denying its allegations, her lawyers are likely to stand a better chance of the court granting this request. They've asked for a 60-day continuance to publish the lawsuit and are expected to complete discovery and depositions by October next year. And this is all kind of based around the idea of sex parties and Kanye's alleged neo-Nazi views. And Picciotto claimed that West promised to pay her a $4 million a year salary, $4 million, bragged about it to JC, then wrongfully fired her and reneged on a $3 million severance payout. Now, this sounds very curious to me. Is like the moment that huge sums like that are involved, at the end of the day, right, she was his assistant. Why would he pay her $4 million a year salary? That's just weird, right? West has denied the claims. He calls them baseless, accused her of blackmail and extortion, but has yet to file a defense. And as I say, he's not even really been served with the lawsuit. There are other lawsuits for Kanye as well, including suggestions that he hired private investigators while his wife was overseas to follow her, and also that he gagged and choked America's Next Top Model, JENNINE, until she blacked out during a music video shoot. I mean, it goes on and on. It's horrible. It's horrible stuff. And nothing can stop what is coming, says Mikey B. It's awful. There just seems to be no end of allegations, right, facing famous men. Maybe the thing to do is cut back on the rock and roll lifestyle, settle down, don't act as if you own anyone or anything. And part of the problem, obviously, I cannot make any judgment about either Puffy or Kanye because they've yet to be tried. And in fact, obviously, with Kanye, it's a civil case. So even with a civil case, even if they won against him, he's still not been criminally proven that he did those things. But we do know that people like Diddy and Kanye are treated as if they walk on water, as if they are the second coming. Certainly, Kanye, for the most part, has always thought of himself as a second coming, had a God complex, pretty much like Russell Brand, actually. He often reminds me of Russell Brand for some reason, which I'm not quite entirely sure why, but there you go. But I think a lot of it is to do with entitlement and people so desperate to become famous and get involved in the music industry. And as I said, as somebody who worked in the music industry, my piece of advice is if you want to get in the music industry, do not drink around these people. Do not take their drugs. Do not find yourself in a vulnerable position at all. Make sure that you have people in your corner. Their people are not your people. They're their people. So make sure you have your people. I'm not saying don't get involved in the entertainment industry. I'm saying make sure to protect yourself. And on that note, let's talk about love. Should we talk about love? I think love is a beautiful conversation to have. We're going to talk about love with Rosie. Rosie Maria Love.
Hi.
Rosie.
Yes.
Am I coming back at me? Hello? Oh, no, you've turned it off now, haven't you?
I haven't touched anything, but is that all right? Can you see me all right?
I can see you beautifully. Everybody, this is Rosie Maria Love. Let's show an image of Rosie Maria in a former life. You were a power lifter, hardcore. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I know my book on the front says a world powerlifting champion's extraordinary shift from physical strength or physical power to a far greater power. So although my background was powerlifting, my book doesn't go on much about the powerlifting. That was really to show that I was somebody that was striving to be someone.
Yeah, and deep in your physical self as well. This is very much about your physical self, isn't it? Whereas the journey that you've undertaken is very much about your emotional and psychological and spiritual state, isn't it? So But I think it's interesting because actually the reason I wanted to start with that is reading your book. I'm up to chapter 6, by the way. But reading your book, first of all, it's very candid about your life and what you've experienced. And actually, it really shows the importance of your foundation. Right.
Yes.
I want to work through that because I think it is so powerful. And I should say, everybody, Rosie has also agreed, very lovely, to give us a signed copy of this book as well. So we'll organize that at the end. So let's talk about your book, because as I say, the powerlifting is very much about the physical, powerful, about you being a master manifester. But it's hardly a surprise, given almost from birth, your father had very exacting standards that he wanted you to live up to, right? Talk to us about that.
Okay, so a little bit about my upbringing. I absolutely idolized my dad, but I was terrified of him at the same time because he was quite an angry person. I've since learned, to forgive him and to understand that just came from his own fear. However, he idolized me and he got me walking at 7 months. So what I've learned is that I very much from a very young age responded to wanting to please those that I loved.
Right.
And it made me want to achieve. I felt then that was my way to safety, would be to just please people, achieve. Then I would get my love. Then I'd get my safety and approval. So that was the start of it. But my dad was my coach. He was my weightlifting coach. And I have to say, I really enjoyed that because before then I was a springboard diver. And, I was top in the country for that. So again, I had that need to please, and when I could focus, one thing I did realize that if I really wanted something physically that I knew that I was good at, I was able to make that happen.
Right. That's what I mean about master manifester. That's so apparent in this book. I mean, you were such an early learner. You were reading and writing before your expected age. You entered school before your expected age. But also, I think the other thing there's a number of very curious things. You experienced very early trauma. You were literally struck by a car at the age of 3.5. How traumatic must that have been? Can you remember it?
I don't remember any of it. Since I've been doing a lot of more inner work and looking at traumas and things in my later life, a few memories have come back, which I've mentioned in the book, which was actually, being left in a ward at 3.5 years old, having never been apart from your parents, because I'd broken my leg and they used to strap you up then. And, my parents said that the whole ward was just screaming children. I mean, that set in even more fear because my book talks about how much fear I carried through one season or another. And people that have read the book have said that they've related to some of those things, things that happen at school, things that happen when your parents try to scare you into never doing something again, not realizing the trauma that can bring. And then you start steering your life away from doing things that you want to do because you're frightened so much of the end result if you make a mistake. You
make a lot about how much fear was guiding you, but I also think the other thing that was really interesting, your observations, is about the disconnection that you felt from a very early age. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, the disconnection. Can you just reiterate the disconnection from what?
Well, just kind of like the disconnection from who you were. There were all these negative beliefs around you, right? And a lot of it was guided by fear.
Yeah. So, the negative beliefs was very much about myself. I felt that I was, despite the fact I was winning, I couldn't please my dad. In everyday life, because I learned he was just angry. And as a child, I thought it was my fault. But, if I said a few words wrong, he would shout and scream that I didn't know what I was talking about, that I was thick and stupid. He very much came from a male dominating attitude, that women were less than. And I took on board that I, as myself, was not enough. And that made me obviously very fearful, but I lost who I was because I was forever trying to suss out different people. Right. They want me to be like that.
Right. Exactly.
So eventually, I think most important thing for me was when I was 17, I started to become bulimic. And there were two main reasons for that. One, because I had to keep my weight very light for the weightlifting because it was weight related. And the other reason was that when I would get triggered and I would get this immense fear come through me when my dad would shout at me. And it was a lot to do with just the disappointment, you know, like it was terror inside, but nobody knew from the outside. I was very good at keeping it all looking nice, but I would just stuff myself and get rid of that pain.
Yeah.
But then my other fear was gaining weight. So that would be why you would make yourself sick. But that nearly took me to my death. And I think that's really important because I eventually had enough. I was doing it 8-9 times a day. It was consuming my life. It was secret. Obviously, it increased the shame around myself because I couldn't stop. I used to pray to a God I didn't really believe in every morning. Please, God, don't let me make myself sick today. You know, don't let me overeat. I would fail. And in the end, I collapsed in the bathroom and I just cried out to a God that I didn't really believe in, which is now I know that we're never truly disconnected to whatever that is.
No, our source, the source of who we are.
The source of who we are, because we all cry out at times of
we do, but the thing is that what you're depicting and what I get absolutely through the book, but also I have to say there is a story about salvation as well, and your forgiveness of people as well. Go on.
Well, just to end that, when I was about to take my own life through the bulimia, because I'm shouting, I don't want to live anymore, I heard a voice unlike my own, and this is what the whole book is about. There is another voice within all of us, I believe. There is our higher loving self that obviously gets lost with the ego mind. And I was listening to another one. Anyway, this voice told me exactly what to do to get over the bulimia, and it worked. I can't say any more than that. We haven't got time, I know. But the forgiveness I've learnt through my pain. You know, I love that. We become teachable through our pain, you know. I certainly did. So I started to go off on a quest. You know, I needed to know, you know, how to find myself. But I also have covered in the book that I learned to forgive somebody that raped me, who was, you know, and
you learned. I mean, you learned to forgive your mum. I mean, that was one of the so touching, the idea that you were with her for the last few months when she was dying, and you were both able to rectify in a way, and you were able to understand her. You were able to forgive your father. Did you forgive your grandfather for abusing you?
Absolutely.
And what you learned really was that there was power in that forgiveness. Okay. And it's not easy to forgive people who have done such harm to us. Your parents were heavy drinkers. You grew up in that environment. It was difficult for you because you had at least 30 plus foster children in the home. Right. But you saw that as a good thing, that everybody was like coming together. But that's a lot of chaos that you were dealing with from a very young age. Right.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I do believe that our life's journey, when we overcome things, become our gift, because I'm able to help so many people now, people that obviously have been sexually abused or raped or have had difficult childhood. You know, my childhood wasn't terribly, you know, compared to some, it wasn't that bad, but it's how it affects you. It's how, you know, if it causes you trauma, and then later on in life, usually life gets worse and worse, and we get to a point, hopefully, where we start to search for the answers. And for me, forgiveness, I couldn't just forgive. I had to know why I was forgiving, you know. And for me, it was understanding that I hadn't walked in their shoes. My mum and dad's childhood was much worse than mine. They carried the same traumas, and they were just passing them on unknowingly. I knew they loved me underneath, you know. So it was, for me, it's all about love. It's all about compassion. I don't have to hang around somebody that is going to hurt me, but I can forgive them, and I can have love in my heart for them, because I think that's really important. People think if I forgive them, I might try and make friends with them again, and they'll hurt me again.
Yes. No, you don't have to do that. No, you don't have to do that.
That's
I love people that I have to keep at a distance. I can only love them from a distance, right? So I think that's also important. But you are in no doubt whatsoever that love is absolutely the thing that sets you free. You're in no doubt about that. And that is the big message of the book, isn't it?
about it. I mean, I live most of the time now in joy. If I do get triggered by things, I will just sit and ask my creator. People can call it whatever they want. They're angels, God, it doesn't really matter. But that I truly believe through or I have a knowing rather than a belief, but it always sounds a little bit arrogant if you say I know something. But through my own experience, it works for me to know that there is always a loving way to see something. And who gets the relief? I do, to carry.
Right.
Even when I talk like this, my heart gets warm, because it's heartwarming to be able to know that anybody that is acting other than love or loving, they're hurting inside. And I have to bless them and let them go on their journey. But if I take it personally, which was my biggest problem, I used to take things so personally, thinking that, if someone's not nice to me, then I must be wrong. And I learned that that's not true, and
it's hard though. It's so hard when we're hurt from people's actions. I've literally forgiven all my enemies. I have, because I'm not going to have them, as they say, live rent free in my head anyway. But also, like you, I've been able to see how truly screwed up they are. These people who want to hurt you, they're already messed up themselves. But forgiveness is a miracle in its own right, isn't it? And it can literally, I think, cleanse everything it touches. But it's no easy way to it, though. You had to go through all manner of things. You're healing from rape, discovering that your partner was cheating on you. It takes a lot to get that shift of consciousness, Rosie.
Yes, it does. It does. And I have worked really hard. And I think what I did and what I was able to do with my focus was that focus that I could channel into becoming a world champion sports person. I've given the same 100% to growing that connection to the divinity within me, to the love that I know we all are. So, it's my life. I'm always thinking that way. And, I watched something the other day on your podcast about, we attract what we think, and someone said to me once, we don't attract what we think, we attract what we are. And
oh yeah, that's right.
Because I've had people, or even what you say, I mean, I've had relationships, God bless them, where they were great at talking it, but their actions were different.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But the thing is that what I'm getting from your book is it's a process of letting go, like one thing after another, whether that's the hurt people cause us, or mind states that we get into, or wrong beliefs about ourselves. And where I've got up to chapter 6, that feels like you're letting go of materialism, right? I think it's called Homeless Angel. Talk to us about that.
Oh, wow. That was a miracle. If there are such things as angels being sent to you in a human form, that really could have been the one. So in order to overcome the need for security, we all want security, financial security, and for me, I wanted fame and achievement, thinking that was going to keep me safe. So moving on a lot, once I'd done a lot of inner work, I decided to sell my house, and it took me 5 years to pluck up the courage, because I was terrified of being homeless and losing everything. But anyway, in the end, I did it. I walked out of my house, never looked back. And I just said to God, right, you show me what you want me to do. The very next day, I was walking along the beach, and there's this homeless guy, and he was singing with a ukulele, love, love me do. I love you. I mean, and I'm just like, I'm just beaming, and I realized in that moment, I wanted to go and speak to him. I had a fear of speaking to homeless people. And I asked myself what that was about. And it was all about pride and shame. What will people think if I sit and talk to him? And I was, and this is what I do on a regular basis. I question my mind, Anyway, I thought, I know what I can say to him. I can tell him I'm homeless too now. because I didn't have a fixed abode of my own. So I sat next to him and I started talking. And long story short, this man his talk about vibration of love. He just kept saying to me, love is the answer, Rosie Maria. I'm so happy. He said, there isn't one day that's gone that I haven't been looked after and taken care of by God. Now, he was using the word God. I'm not religious. I use that word God quite freely, but in my book, I explain that I'm not into religion. And by the end of this conversation, this man was teaching me that you can be more happy on the street with the right frame of mind than anywhere. And just like that, my fear of homelessness disappeared. And I gave him a hug and I thanked him for the wisdom that he'd passed on to me. And as I walked away, he shouted out to me, Rosie, I love you.
Yeah. It's like a release, isn't it? Because what was all there was also all your feelings of, I don't know, shame, you know, anxiety, you know, these people are like other people. You've been, you know, somehow the environment has raised you to believe these people are other people. And actually, as you say, this was like an earth angel.
Yes, absolutely. And do you know that he actually ended up on the street because he was sick of the system? He didn't, yeah. And he said, I've never been happier. I sleep under the stars. You know, this man was just amazing.
This is interesting. Frank's asking, ask her thoughts on banter and wit. What the importance of humor, Frank?
Yes. Well, also, if you read the book, you'll see that I'm a laughter coach. Because I used to be so uptight, worrying all the time about what people thought of me, how I looked. Somebody suggested that I took a course in laughter yoga and led this the session in their next festival. And I thought they were mad, absolutely mad. But long story short, they talked me into it. And just that in itself, the weekend of the training, completely changed me. I've never gone back to being serious anymore.
Laughter is so important, isn't it? I always, even though a lot of the stuff we discuss around here is absolutely horrible and dark, and I always try and make sure that we have some balance to what's going on, because otherwise you start to just see everything so dark and so negative all the time, and we can't be like that. The world is already trying to make us like that, so we have to remember who we are. And I think that's the thing that I've gained so much from this, is you are very clear about who you are and dealing with whatever that comes your way, whether that is, as I say, like money fear, suicidal thoughts, you know, feeling of not being good enough, any of those things. And you seem to have got on top of it. Is that also, though, a process of maturity? Because I love the fact of where I am now, and I literally don't give a flying about what anybody thinks about me, what I look like, none of that. It's so freeing. I love it.
Yeah. I think that definitely comes with getting older. I don't know. It's a bit of both, all the inner work that I've done. And I think you mentioned this, you know, the suicidal thing. I just wanted to say that a massive part of my shift was when my mind, the ego mind, was telling me that the world would be better off without me. And then this other voice came in again and said, do you really believe your children would be better off without me? In that moment, I was shocked to realize that the mind, the normal one that just goes off, is actually not my friend.
No, that's right. We have to be careful, don't we? Because some of those internal voices we hear, those have come from people who hated us or tried to bring us down, and we carry those voices and that try and limit us. But you were in no doubt whatsoever that when you heard the voice, it was love. You say that it was like just love.
Absolutely.
I mean, how can you even begin to explain that, how it made you feel?
Well, at the beginning, that voice of love was more of a revelation that we all have this loving voice that we can call upon. And that, you know, you said all the voices of other people in our head, but in the end, it became my voice. I'm telling myself I'm no good.
Yes.
If I could pass one thing on to everyone, and I'd say that any voice, any thought that takes you out of peace, you have to know it's a lie. that there is another way of looking at it. There is another truth. That's why in the book, Love Will Set You Free, you just sit for a minute and you ask, you know, help me see things differently. Because the truth does not hurt us. Truth doesn't make us feel bad.
I think the other thing that you tackle, which I think is so important, is the issue of codependency.
Oh gosh.
I mean, but that is important, is it? Many of us don't realize that our relationships are codependent. To just talk a little bit about that, to illuminate that.
Yeah, so I often get asked, what is codependency? You know, and for me, it was needing something outside of me or some person to be a certain way, or even to have a certain person in my life so that I could survive, you know, that I could be happy. I was terribly codependent. You know, when I was living with one of my alcoholic partners, I was nearer to suicide than they were, and I was hardly thinking anything because I was so focused on them. If only they didn't drink, I would be happy. If only my children did this, I would be happy. And I've learnt that well, obviously it's not true, because this person did stop drinking, and then I'm left with me and my thoughts and my obsessions. And this was my journey to look within, to find out what is not serving me. And you know, through the journey, I've discovered those things, and I've discovered there is another way.
I think you can probably resonate with what John from Coventry is saying. I need to get this book for my mum. I can never get through to her with her negativity. She has created her own prison and resents anyone who is not trapped with her. I hear that loud and clear. But how would you respond to John for that?
Well, I had a mother as well that was very codependent. And what I learned in the end, because I learned to be okay with her codependency. If I couldn't change, I've learned I can't change someone else, but what I can do is I can learn to love them the way they are. But the other thing is, I don't buy into their codependency.
Right.
Yeah. So if they keep, oh, why haven't you come to see me? Or why is I still do what I feel is right for me in a loving way, but I don't go round because my mum was pressuring me to go round more and more. But I used to go around to my mum's every day because that's what she wanted. And that was codependency. I was codependent, but don't buy into it anymore, but love them and bless them on their journey and hope that they get it.
Although I have to say, as I said before earlier, and that for me, one of the most profound parts that I've reached so far is where your mum is dying and where you see her in a different light. You're able to spend time with her. And that I think is really profound. It actually makes you feel quite choked up even to recall it. So that I think that has had a huge impact on you, just being able to be with her actually while she was dying.
To think that before I started this, knowing that I was on a spiritual journey, that I hated my mum. I loved her somewhat, but you know, love and hate are very close, aren't they? You hate someone because they're not doing what you think they should do. And then at the end, the love that I had for my mum while I was caring for her for the last 2 months was so immense. It could make me cry, you know, just accepting her for who she was and loving her. It was like an acceptance. It was an unconditional love I suddenly felt for her. And I saw her differently in that time.
And you had, in many respects, been so betrayed. And I speak as somebody who comes from what would have been routinely called a dysfunctional background, also mad, crazy stuff, not dissimilar to yours, I think, which is why it resonated. Can I just say thank you, lovely Linda, who brought this book to my attention. Thank you so much, Linda. I truly appreciate that. But I think one of the most important things also that I've got from this is the importance of trusting your own feelings.
Yes. Yes.
We deny our feelings a lot, don't we?
And that's another thing that I do now. I follow my joy.
I do.
Yeah. And often our joy is not what other people want you to do.
Yeah.
You know, when I sold my house and went traveling, my mum and dad did not like it at all. But I'd got enough strength and inner knowing that they just didn't understand. So I follow my joy. Somebody once said something very, very what's the word? Well, very direct, but it's never left me. They said, don't do anything that you don't enjoy just because you think you have to. Don't do anything just for the money, because that is like prostituting yourself. And I remember thinking, oh, that's a bit, And
It's
I don't
true.
do that now. I don't do that now. And money has just come to me because I no longer try and get it from the ways I think I should.
Exactly. Do you know what the thing is that I think we could start by helping children by one, introducing more true spirituality at an earlier age. Actually, I'm not necessarily talking about organized religion, which we get bombarded with in school, but like more true spirituality, being in touch with ourselves and actually learning to trust ourselves. That's also something that I think should be introduced in at primary level as well, because those are the foundational ages. Like up to the age of 7, the amount of stuff that we are learning then is really quite phenomenal. But I'm grateful for you writing this book. It's been lovely to read so far, and I suppose very cathartic for you as well, right?
It was, yeah. Like a lot of people I've heard, I started writing it in lockdown because I had the time. I've been encouraged by a lot of friends to put these miracles, because there are many miracles in the book, I feel, by choosing love over fear. And
Exactly.
I said to someone the other day, I picked my book up and I said, you know, I think this book more than anything is for me, because when I read it over and over again, it reminds me of what I've learned. I know that sounds crazy.
No, absolutely. It's like reading, I'm sure for you, it's like reading a diary. It's like, I just was really impressed with, as I say, how it's raw. Like it's literally raw when you talk about your grandfather and the relationship with your mum, the relationship with your dad. And it's like, wow, it's like you. And this is what I absolutely love, is that there is no shame whatsoever in really kind of exposing what has happened to you. And I think that in itself is a power. It's a superpower.
Yeah, I've learned that most of my healing has come from being in certain circles of people, or being on a one-to-one where you are able to unload anything. There isn't anything that I have now done that I'm ashamed of, but I had loads of things that I thought I was the only one that had ever done it. You know, and so you know, that's a huge healing in itself, to find the right person or the right group to be able to unload anything that you feel guilty or shame about, because we're not alone in it.
No. And also when you break it, you're also breaking a generational curse that will help you. You've got 2 sons, I think, right? So that
3, actually.
3, sorry. So but that will help your own children when you're able to break generational curses. Like I was the first member of my family to go to university, as one example. And then my daughter automatically went. Not saying that you should or shouldn't go to university. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying was, in my family, we'd come from like coal miners and scullery maids. And we, you know, the idea wasn't that you advanced yourself in any way. And so I think it really is important. I think it's a lovely book. Thank you for writing it. And you're going to give away a signed copy of it. So everybody, this is the new rules basically is contact me at soniapoulton@sky.com. And I'm going to leave that open until 6 p.m. on Tuesday evening. After that time, I will do a random selection, as I did with the last book, and you will get a signed copy of this from lovely Rosie Maria. Rosie Maria, what would you like to leave us with? It's been some beautiful comments. And that is the other thing, of course, is that when you are free and when you are able to express yourself, it enables other people to. Right. And some of the comments that we've received here, people like, you know, they're bearing their soul. And I think that in itself is its own reward.
Well, thank you. Before I just leave you with the last message, I would like to just say, because I heard you mention it on the last one, I'm doing a book signing near Reading tomorrow night. If anybody is in that area, upstairs in the Chocolate Factory in Goring on Thames, which is near Reading, Henley. So love to see anybody if they're in the area. So back to your question.
What time?
Oh, 7:30.
7:30. Say the venue again.
It's the Chocolate Factory upstairs in the Chocolate Factory Cafe. Sorry, the Chocolate Cafe upstairs in Goring.
In Goring on Thames. I think that's where George Michael lived and died, if I'm correct. But yeah, go on. So, finish it off.
I would just like to say to everyone that just know that you are enough just the way you are, and to follow your joy, because then you get to know who you are. Don't people please. You know, it's very hard, but you are loved by the Creator just as you are. Doesn't matter what you achieve, what you gain, what you do. And as long as you are kind to yourself and others, you will grow spiritually.
Hallelujah, sister. And I don't mean that in a religious way at all. I mean that as an outpouring of joy. Lovely to have you with us. Thank you
so much,
So-
Sonia. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us this morning, everybody. Don't forget the book. There she is. There's the lady. Absolutely. Bearing her soul, which is a wonderful thing. Rosie Maria Love. Oh, incidentally, is Love your real name? It can't be.
I changed it 15 years ago because I felt that if my name was Love, I would grow into that vibration easier.
And what's not to love about that? Absolutely beautiful. Take good care of yourself, Rosie
Thank you so
Maria.
much,
God bless
Sonia.
you, darling. Take care. Lovely to see her. Wonderful. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, isn't that lovely? Heppelwyn found the love. What's this? I found the love of my life 5 years ago. I've never known. I think that's such. I've never known such peace and self-love. I hear you, sister. What else? If someone is unkind towards me, I say that to myself. What's that? Their opinion of me is none of my business. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's easy to get bogged down with all the negativity going on, but that's what they want. Sally Ann, it is. Hello, grand risings to Heal in the Silence. That's okay. Healing the Silence is tardy this morning. Careful what you write. Honesty is unwanted unless you're invited to spill your guts on the show. Hey, Eric, I don't think she had problems doing that at all, which is wonderful. Mikey said, oh, sign the petition, please. Did I get this right? Was Petite Rosie a weightlifter? Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you that picture again. There you go. Look at that. So you're a power lifter. Is a power lifter the same as a weightlifter? I'm just wondering. Yes, Kennedy, you got that absolutely right. But that's why I think the book is really powerful, because actually what the book really shows is like the power of the mind. She was taught from a very, very early age by her father that she was this absolute powerhouse, that she could walk earlier than everybody else. She could talk earlier than everybody else. And I think all of that is really interesting. And in fact, it is that and reading this book which will inform our last comment today. So let us move on. Beautiful people. Cheers, Rosie, says Hoax. I just want to say that Robbie Williams, of course, formerly of Take That, he's calling for the music industry to create support groups for young stars struggling with fame. This is in the wake of the tragic death of Liam Payne, former One Direction star at the age of 31. And I totally support this initiative. But how could we be sure that such an entity wouldn't be infiltrated? So Robbie is calling for the music industry to create a support group for young stars struggling with fame. Williams came to fame himself at the age of 16 years old with Take That. As I say, he's often talked about his own struggles. And he's hoped a think tank of empathetic and compassionate creatives could come together to protect people. That would be wonderful, as long as they're not already kind of like industry people, because they'll have bought into the system as well. So I think there is a lot to be said about it. And definitely there needs better protection within the music industry, because when you have, you know, scenarios like a sort of Simon Cowell, which basically Simon Cowell has created a factory of artists, and when they no longer serve their purpose, then they are exited, stage left. But it's really far away from actual creativity. And I come from a musical family. I can't play instruments myself. I come from a musical family. My daughter's extremely musical. My big brother's musical. And we used to sing a lot as children, Mum and my brothers and my sister, and we'd all sit down and with the old tape recorder. I actually have got a tape from about, I don't even know, 50 years ago, where we're all singing in our living room on a Sunday night, if I remember correctly. So, you know, music is definitely in my blood. I love it. And that was why I suppose I gravitated towards the music industry and writing about music. But I also know it is absolutely full of the most horrendous people. They will just suck the lifeblood out of you. So it definitely needs some form of protection to take care of people. It's just whether they would actually be people who are going to be gatekeeping or are kind of like really there to protect you. So, but I like the idea of it in principle, or in theory, rather. I like the idea. And I just want to say about this, I'm starting to get really wound up about people who claim to be whistleblowers, but actually they're enablers, right? They're just saving their own hides. I want to speak about these enablers. They're people who enabled bad situations to continue, will only speak out now when there's nothing to lose and everything to gain. The Diddy situation is an absolutely perfect example. Look at all these so-called insiders coming out and singing like birds. Now he's banged up and now everyone is cashing in. I don't like these kind of people. They are bottom feeders. They take to the internet to claim they saw things that they never acted on. And sometimes they didn't see anything, but have the loosest connection to the person. But these people are always looking for the next opportunity. But here's the thing. To a seasoned BS detector like me, these people also tell on themselves. Some of the biggest Diddy whistleblowers are telling on themselves. They are talking about how they saw children at these parties with adults doing things to them. But what did you do? What did you do to stop it? What did you do when you talk about how children were selected from a table? What did you do? What did you do to stop it? And I'm really concerned about these things, right? You have people like Gene Deal, who former Puffy bodyguard, the things that that man claims to have seen. I mean, it's just outrageous. What did he do to stop it? It would appear nothing, but he's singing like a canary now. So I find that a lot of these whistleblowers are in fact enablers, but it's just opportunistic, isn't it? It's like, you know, when you really kind of delve deep into the whole Diddy situation, you see an awful lot of partying going on. And a lot of that, what happened, I think a lot of what happened with the abuse is, and you have people who've talked about this, Damon Dash and various other people. I think a lot of what happened was innocent people were drugged. And they were forced to do things that they didn't want to do, but they were off their faces, out of their minds, and they were drugged. And that goes back to this whole thing of me saying, if you want to get in the music industry, don't attend their parties. I know that you probably feel you need to in order to be able to schmooze. But if you attend their party, take somebody with you that you know and trust outside of the music industry. Do not drink their drinks ever. Do not drink their drinks. They're probably laced. Do not take their drugs. It's only about compromising you. And so I'm just want to put that out there, that I'm getting increasingly uncomfortable with the sheer volume of so-called whistleblowers who are coming forward and turning out to be nothing but enablers themselves. And, you know, people like this, I've met a million of these people, literally a million of these people, right? Half the time, they really haven't seen what they claim to see. They're just desperados who want to be famous, right? So what they do is they get the loosest possible connection, right? They may have been at a Diddy party, but then they add all layers on top of it. But the people around Diddy, there is no excuse. The Gene Deals and those people, they have no excuse. They saw abuse and they didn't stop it. I don't want to hear from them now. I don't want to hear what they have to say because they enabled abuse. And that's what I want to say, really, at this moment about what's going on there. And I am disturbed by it. Yes, I am. Dave wrote to us, by the way. He said, "Dear Sonia, the fake awake. I'm so glad you're calling out what I call the fake awake, loony truthers. As you know, it's blimmin' difficult enough trying to wake up MSM sheep, but these idiot truthers are getting us all tarred with the same tinfoil brush." I see, Dave, you're not happy. There was a commenter on your Rumble account who keeps saying King Charles died years ago, and the person we're seeing is either a clone or an actor. All this without a shred of proof. And you'll be attacked by these imbeciles if you don't go along with their conspiracies. It's true, Dave. Absolutely. No, I'm not saying it's true that's Charles. I don't buy into that. I mentioned this the other week because we'd had a conversation at a breakfast meeting I had about this whole kind of this constant conspiracy theory that all leading ladies are actually men. And I do think that there is scope for it, but it's not everyone. And actually, it's really insulting to women. It's like suggesting that unless it's actually men in woman face, women can't succeed or achieve at all, which is baloney. Absolutely baloney. Anyway, Dave said, in my opinion, they're actually worse than the sheep, because if they claim to be able to research, then they should also be able to discern. And Dave is looking forward to us going thrice weekly with the addition of a Wednesday show. And Dave is one of those lovely people who watch us on catch up. Whatever time you watch us, Dave, we are grateful for it. Yes, we are. But what Dave said reminded me of an expression that I hear often, and it annoys me. It irritates me. And it is, if you know their name, they're in the game. This is a statement said by people who view life way too simplistically. Not every famous or known person is compromised or captured, right? It is possible to get a decent profile without selling out, without becoming part of their club. The type of people who say, if you know their name, they're in the game, are the type of people who generally feel quite helpless. They are often people struggling to launch themselves. And it's a naive statement. It simply does not bear out in fact. Also, it sends a terrible defeatist attitude to people that there is no point in trying to reach the top in whatever you're doing, whether that's in kind of media or entertainment or the creative arts, because unless you are prepared to be part of the club, then you will never get on. That's a lie. It is a lie. And I don't like it. And I find that it's incredibly naive people who are uttering that. And it's untrue. There are many artists who have had success who have not sold their souls to the industry devils. We really need to grow up more. We do. And realize that just because we can say something, it doesn't mean that we should, right? Not just because people are famous, it doesn't make every one of them a devil. That's a dumb attitude. It's a dumb attitude and I don't like it. And there you go. That's what I'm saying for this Monday. How are you all in the comments? Now I've just got that off my chest. I just wanted to get that off my chest. I did. I can play a triangle. I can. They are complicit. We're now talking about the enablers, aren't we? The whistleblowing enablers. How dare they? How dare they claim to be something different when in fact they were there. They witnessed apparently these children being abused by these adults. They did nothing to stop it, but they got a good story to sell on some loser's channel on YouTube now. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I don't like it. They are complicit. Yes. Yes, they are. Complete opportunists. Yes, Blue Nomad, they are. I keep having Sinead O'Connor on my mind. Bless her, says Randy. Why is that then? I mean, you know, I also, around this time of the year, I always have Kirsty MacColl on my mind because I would argue that she was part of one of the greatest Christmas songs ever. Ever. Fairy Tale of New York. I love that. And by the way, it was lovely seeing Rose's Christmas tree because this time next week, there's going to be a Christmas tree behind me. I love all that stuff. Their ideal of partying is abuse. It is beyond belief. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Simon's right. It's connected to MK Ultra, which sounds modern. It's not. It's been happening since 1945. True story. Absolutely true story. They are canaries in the coal mine. Yes, they are. Evil personified. And thank you, Steve. We appreciate that. I am. Oh, thank you, Martina or Matina. Matina, that's it. Matina Bastakos. Oh, I like that. Where does that come from? Where does that come from, Matina? I like that. I feel that is an Eastern European name somehow. Let me know. And Avril sent me a lovely, encouraging email about Wake Up Growing. She also wanted to know what I'd heard about an assortment of explosions around the UK over the last few days. You heard about these explosions. She wrote, "Hi, Sonia, loving your shows, breath of fresh air." Thank you, Avril. We appreciate that. Wondering if you know much more than what's trickling out of mainstream news and what Google is saying, that there has been 4 controlled explosions over a few days at public stations and airports around the UK. And when touched on, it's not the headliner. Also, the words terror, terrorist or related have not been mentioned whatsoever in any case. I've been searching for updates, but it's just not there or disappears within no time. And Avril goes on to say that for years I've seen all this upside down BS, and when I point it out to friends and family, well, I'm sure you can guess their response, although some are beginning to wake up. And Avril goes on to say that I've helped her mental health, which really makes me happy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I think us gathering all together here, it's a sense of not feeling so alone. You like help my mental health. You help my mental and emotional health. And I love you. So thank you, Avril. So let's just look at that. So there have been a series. Well, were there blasts? I mean, that is the question really, right? So a controlled explosion was carried out by British police near the US Embassy in London after a suspicious package was discovered in the area. The Metropolitan Police confirmed the loud bang was the result of a controlled detonation, and the surrounding area south of the River Thames was cordoned off for a search operation. Then there was a controlled explosion outside Euston Station in London, after we were told a suspicious package was found. And I think then there was one at Gatwick Airport, reopens its terminal after bomb scare evacuation. Now, here's the thing I'm getting a sense of here. What if this is a false flag they're doing here? Remember what happened last week? This is my sense, Avril. I'm struggling to buy all this stuff, right? And obviously, last week there was this whole big thing to do with Putin and to do with what was happening and how London might suddenly become a target. Well, what better way for the parasitical handlers to stage events, right? Because there's so little that is known about this. And what appears absolutely apparent is not one of them was actually a bomb, right? These are, so that they are detonating these so-called suspicious packages. And of course, you go on social media and people are like, that's it, Putin is targeting us in London. Nah, I don't think for a second that is what is happening, but I do think it is highly likely that we're being scared into believing that is the case. Now, I am open, absolutely open. And if anybody wants to either tell me in the live chat or on in the comments that they know something else is going on, I am totally open to it. But that is my first instinct, Avril. My first instinct is we're being played, because there's four of them. There's four of them. London is now on high alert, apparently. And as I say, I'm not buying it. Something is off here, people. Possible exercises, sail away. I think that's possible. Bear in mind how many false flags have been preceded by these exercises, right? And Greg said, I've only gone and blown the doors off a box to my best sausage rolls. Lovely. And LB laughing. Russia's responsible for our power cuts. That's not a serious statement. But yeah, I'm now at the stage where Putin, Trump, Zelensky, Starmer, all controlled by the same Sabbatean bankers, says Stella. Belief is spell check gone wrong. Yeah, priming. I tend to think that's what's going on here. And I saw somebody else say fear porn as well. It feels, doesn't it feel? And somebody else, yes, here you go, one of our mods, Crazy Bunny, keeping vibrations low. Because obviously, Avril, you heard about that. I heard about it. And people are on social media like, oh, we're under attack. They're coming after us. That is not making us high at all. That's scaring the pants off us. It's easy to set up training exercises and pass it off as legit. Yeah, MB, fact. Blue Nomad said they're trying to bring in another lockdown. Well, the perfect way, isn't it, is to say that we're under attack from Russia. Now, I don't know how old you are or what the age of our viewers is. I know it can be something like from 13 to 90, which is fantastic. But in my lifetime, Russia has always been the bogeyman. Always fear Russia. And as I grew up, I realized that I need to fear the people who are telling me to fear Russia. Fear promotions, says Mikey. So, Avril, I think we're getting the gist here from our live comments that nobody's buying it, right? Nobody's buying it. So look out today, people. But also bear in mind that in these situations, the state is not beyond taking down innocent targets as well. State is not beyond that. And I think it's important that we recognize that. You won't ever hear that on BBC or GB News or LBC, but you'll hear it here. The state is not above taking down individuals in order to fulfill bigger, wider agendas. What are you saying to me? 10:51. Simpsons had an episode on 27th November. 1 week internet outrage. Is that right? Unclear power. No thanks. What's that? What's going on? My mum will not go to Edinburgh Xmas market. She's scared. Now look at that. Look at that. That is exactly it, right? Isn't the idea? I would Conjure Laboratories. I absolutely love your comment. I can't put it on the screen. YouTube will smack my hands, but I love it. Red's under the bed. And 2 million, points out Lulu. 2 million. Do we know how many? Has it surpassed 2 million now, that petition? Has it surpassed? So yeah, Avril, I think you've got it. This whole kind of multiple suspicious packages. And there were more, by the way. There was like Chester Railway and Bus Station, Runcorn Shopping Centre, Glasgow Bus Station, we were hearing as well. The state are the terrorists, Deirdre. Is that 2 million awake? LB wants to know. Whoa, look at this. Thanks, George, for adding that there. Let's just add this. 2,439,000 signatures. Keep signing the petition, please, says Mikey. Exactly. Nobody's buying it. Thanks to the works of Richard D. Hall, Maud Deep, etc. Thus, their work is done. Yeah, Kat. It's going so fast. It is. It's clocking up. It must have passed 2 million. The public have spoken. Whoop, whoop. The public have spoken. And honestly, I take everybody's reservations about it, right? It might not amount to a hill of beans. But huge message. Did you? Shug was watching it click onto 1 million yesterday. This is insane. Look at that. In the time, that's insane. That's literally 400 in the time since we just put up the figures. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. Wow. Eric, you're being a bit troublesome, I see. But it's all right. We'll leave you to get on with it. Beyond Belief said it's begging. Keep signing, fam. Such mixed views about this. Begging them to pretend to care about your interests. They don't. Together we are strong, says Mikey. So many have woken up. Now I think, I don't know what that was. I just clicked on there. The petition is creating big publicity, which is great, right? And I think that the awareness is worth something. I don't see it as an entirely futile exercise. I think the absolute awareness is what has a value to it. It's my position. And I've never been a great fan of petitions, but I think that the awareness has a value to it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But over 2 million, wow, that's a huge message, isn't it? Huge message. Right. What have I not shown you yet that I need to? We should do some geoengineering. By the way, big shout out to lovely Debbie Evans of UK Column. She said, what's the possibility of 1 million people donating £5 each to become a shareholder in a new hospital where you'll be assured of safe, welcomed consultant grade doctors and nurses? Who is up for it? We need 1 million to start with. At Dr. Tekkong and I are on a mission. # do no harm. Now, I said I'll promote that on the show because I think that's a great idea. Because at the moment, we've only got, you have mainstream medicine, the allopathic way, or you have the alternative. But I would be willing to donate a £5 to become a shareholder in a new hospital, right? But I suspect that'll be a £5 a month at least. But even that, I think I'd be prepared to do, because if I was actually going to be guaranteed that it was a hospital that wasn't just going to go through the usual allopathic route, then I might be interested in that. I might be. Steve, good morning to you. Steve Poole said, good to know. Get the inside scoop before Monday, 9 a.m. Indeed. And Debbie is saying, who wants to work in Dr. Tekkong's new TLC safe old school caring hospital? What gifts do you have to offer? Nurse, doctor, porter, cook, receptionist, pathologist, radiographer, physio, OT, mental health, physio, AE, pediatrics, and on. We need a team, she says. Yeah, we need a team as long as it doesn't go down the same medical route. As long as there is room for all the things that we have discovered over the last few years and not just to follow the route, then I would 100% financially support that. I think there's something in that. And I want to start a new feature coming Friday. Let's remember our heroes. Right. We don't do it enough. Right. I'm somebody who says, no more heroes, no more heroes. But what about heroes within our own family, people who made a difference? And Trev, one of our regular viewers, dropped me a line about his dad and how Trev, had been invited to a lecture to talk about his dad who had died in a plane crash in Scotland in World War II. And as I read Trev's words, it filled me with both joy and pain. It made me think that we should develop a spot where our ancestors should be remembered. Because chances are your family, like mine, are not the type of family who will get a statue in their honor. Most of the people who have got a statue in their honor have usually bought their way into having a statue in their honor. But what about if we honor them here? So I'm going to kick off with Trev's dad on Friday with some lovely pictures and a story about him, who he is and what he was about and what he did to protect us, our freedoms right now. So please get in touch if there is a member of your family or somebody in your history, it doesn't have to be a member of your family, somebody in your history who you feel deserves to be remembered? Let me know. Let me know. I think we should do that. And a call for evidence, people. I think I've already put a link in the description for this. And thank you to our good friends at Stop Come Pass for raising attention to this. This is Parliament is inquiring whether there is a need in the UK to regulate or mandate the acceptance of physical cash in the form of notes and coins. And the inquiry will consider any need for legislation and or regulation and potential costs to consumers and businesses. Thing is, I thought if it was legal tender, they should have to take it anyway. But obviously what we've seen over the last 4 years is they've slowly, even small businesses have started to inch their way just to accepting card payments. And so I think this is welcome, right? So Parliament is saying we would welcome evidence on the following areas. What is the current state of recent trends in and forecasts for cash acceptance in the UK? Well, I've had people in the comments before who say they haven't been able to pay cash. So we need to keep cash. We need to have some kind of physical currency. We cannot afford to trust them to make it entirely digital. So, but important, the deadline for submission is 5 p.m. next Monday, 2nd of December. And there are a whole host of questions that they ask. How do these challenges differ between large and small businesses? What are the practical challenges that businesses might face from having to always accept cash? Well, I know for a fact that smaller businesses, for the most part, do actually prefer cash because they get charged to use debit cards. And which is oftentimes why they'll say you can only buy with this card if you have a minimum of £5. So the link is in the description below. Please submit to this. Tell them how important cash is. Tell them how important it is. We need to keep our cash unless you think we don't. Any mirror is my hero, says Cavan. If a private, what's this? It's Debbie. It's lovely Debbie. There she is. Debbie, you hear that? Absolutely would support you because yes, please do tell us more. Very. HK says, yeah, please do. Because I think people are so sick and tired of being sick and tired of mainstream medicine. But people like you have people's trust. You're a former nurse. You know what you're talking about and you have people's trust. And I think, yes, please put the link for Debbie's venture, says question everything. I don't think is there a link yet, Debbie? If there is, pop it in comments and we'll put it in the main description. But I think the outset of it sounds really good. Dr. Tekkong's great guy. We like him. I like him. Yes, Debbie, old school nurse as I was. Those days were so fulfilling. My mum was a nurse too, Deirdre. Brain chipping to buy groceries, says Ian. Oh, I'm a bit scary, right? A bit scary to even imagine that. But facts. These are facts. Right. How are we doing? We haven't yet got to our very important geoengineering spot, which I always like to do because I think it's absolutely vital, right? And let me just bring it up. Rebecca, you sent in some pictures. Everybody, I need your assistance. Eyes on the screen, please. Rebecca wants to know if we think these are chemtrails. I have to say yes. Rebecca said, hello, hope you are keeping warm. Over the Dorsington Walk skies Thursday lunchtime. Chemtrails, ? They look like chems to me. Rebecca, they do. What do you think, people? That doesn't look like normal clouds, doesn't look like normal planes. And obviously you can see the plane. You can see the plane going across. And also Matt also sent us some. Matt said, thought I'd attach a few photos of the sky over Barnes Common, Southwest London, this past Sunday, 17th of November. That was last Sunday. One of the very few sunny days this autumn. Seems those glorious autumn sunsets are a thing of the past. It really saddens me to see the sky like that. It genuinely saddens me. Kath said, I've had to walk away from checkout because they wouldn't accept cash. Please fill out that consultation, Kath. You'd be a perfect person for that. Yeah, Matt, where have our dear autumn skies gone? Where have they gone? And I do believe I had another one. Have I missed it? No, Rebecca and Matt. Before I get to the final thought, and it is in part inspired by lovely Rosie Maria, but also something that I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So let me just double check everything. By the way, 2030, there's that year again. Tomorrow, Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall prepares to announce a package of legislation to get Britain working. Officials have forecast that more than 4 million people will be claiming long-term sickness benefit by when? By 2030, 60% higher than before C19. So they're forecasting by 2030, there'll be more than 4 million people claiming long-term sickness benefits. So we saw Keir Starmer and henchwoman Rachel Reeves come out in their high-vis jackets and everything, according to the mainstream media, declaring war on Benefits Britain. I've seen this before. I've literally seen this before. This is an attack on sick and disabled, by the way, if you don't realize it. That's what it is. And that's exactly what's going on. So I want to look at some details. 400,000 disabled people will be set to lose benefits. Because this is actually from Terry on X, who I'm quoting her tweet. 400,000 disabled people set to lose benefits because Liz wants to break down the barriers to get disabled people into work. Employment rate for able-bodied is 82%. Disabled is 54%. Disabled people earn 14% less. Inaccessible workplace, etc. But Liz is okay with plunging them into destitution. She certainly is, because she's a globalist. And they did this 12 years ago. They did this 12 years ago when it was the coalition government, and I fought against it along with a lot of other people, and they used mainstream media to demonize people. So expect people to be called all manner of horrendous things. And, the thing is, right, we also need to be looking at why some people are unemployed. Do you remember a little while ago, we looked at polygamy in the UK? There are actual families who are claiming for more than one wife in the UK, right? Unemployed. That needs to be looked into. Yeah, it needs to be looked into, right? Because if you can work, you should work. And a lot of sick and disabled people can't work. And that will be the level of anxiety that will be being created for people from these awful horror stories is a nightmare. Thank you, Emmy. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. So, yeah, we need to look into that. And it's so offensive, this whole idea of people being unemployed. The fact is, most people are now working poor. They're working poor. Some people have to do 2-3 jobs. It is obscene, and I loathe it. But that's literally what they're forecasting for 23. More unemployment. Right. Somebody just said they refuse certain payments. What was that? Oh, I missed that. Invest whatever you truly want to survive. Oh, I missed that. This is good. Looks like geo interfering to me. I like that. How clever. Such clever people. 2 hours felt like 2 minutes. What's that? Our show, lovely Frank. Is that it? Is that what you're talking about? Car parking at hospitals is outrageously expensive. We should not be paying to park cars at hospitals. No, we shouldn't. The sun has gone white, says Priscilla. We should all be concerned about that. So many comments and I'm missing them all. Yes, Gemma O'Doherty, is she still being dragged through the courts, George? I hear that. I hear that loud and clear. Yes, Kat, the Equality Act 2020 doesn't actually help them because employers don't follow it, especially government jobs. Well, they do when you finally take them to court, but that in itself is hard work, isn't it? What's not me? Don't pay to park at hospitals in Scotland. Show goes quickly. It goes quickly, Stephen. That's the whole plan. So we're on to the last thing now, right? The last thing is, so basically I'm doing a show tomorrow. Shout out to the Red Lion crew. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. And I believe it's already sold out. I'm so excited. And so here's the thing is that when I was kind of preparing what I wanted to say tomorrow at my talk, it really got me thinking. I started reflecting on what brought me to this place, who I am, what I'm about, what has driven me, what has motivated me, what has enraged me, what has inspired me. And I thought, let me ask my viewers, what did they want to be when they were a child? And before the world messed with you, because we know what happens, right? Children come into the world for the most part, fairly decently blank slates away from kind of worldly interference. And then the world starts to pile in and creates limitations and tells people that they can't do this or they can't do that. And lovely Rosie Maria, she's a perfect example of the world trying to shape her in a certain way. And I think we've all had that to a certain degree. Anyway, so I started reflecting on what has made me who I am. And here's an insight into the things that drive me. My big brother Bern was bullied at school, and he was determined that the same wouldn't happen to me. So he decided that one way to avoid that happening was to school me in outwitting my bullies. I was literally trained to do what I do now, right? By the age of 3, it was a Poulton family party piece when people came round, and my specialist subject was who invented what. No matter what it was, by the age of 3, I could tell you who invented what. Whether that was phones, planes, trains, I could tell you. And of course, at the age, a lot of that was just pre-programming. I'd been told it, right? But it looked good. It looked really good for a 3-year-old to do that. But as a child, I wanted to work in TV, which I have done. Okay. I also wanted to be a librarian, by the way, but I haven't done that. I wanted to be the president of the United States, and I wanted to be the first person on the moon, which I can still do. So there's hope. The thing that makes childhood ambitions so important is they are generally untainted by the world. As I say, they are things that our own inner selves like, need and want, and whether they have been born out into our adult life or not, it is likely recalling them will prompt you some important understandings about yourself. So in the comments, what did you want to be when you were a child? Marie, did you want to be an actress? Nobody's going to the lights in the sky, Sonia. Well, I did say I wanted to be the first person on the moon, because obviously they don't buy that whole idea. This is lovely. Mama Bear just always wanted to be a mum. I would imagine from your name, Mama Bear, that you've managed to do that. Susan is finally doing what I love now after marriage, children and divorce, reflexology and sound frequencies. Oh, Joanne wanted to be a pants people. Thank God I ended up in admin. Well, I know. Can you imagine what those women would have gone through with the likes of Jimmy Savile presenting Top of the Pops? Just become president of USA. I did want to, but I realized that was an ambition of my father's, who wasn't around very long, but obviously it went in, didn't it? Oh, somebody wanted to be Sabrina, the teenage witch, right? I detest bullying. Yeah, bullying's horrible. But Robert just wanted to be me. Well, you've managed that, Robert. I've met you, and you strike me as somebody who's absolutely at peace with yourself. Ray wanted to be a train driver. Hey, did you make it to be a train driver? LB wants a hug from Mama Bear. Kennedy wanted to be a gynecologist, but it was only to impress people with a big word. Total Nutter just wanted to leave school. Maria wanted to be a singer. I wanted to run a roller disco for kids, says Humphrey Fluffy. So here's the thing. I think that childhood, Eric wanted to survive. That's powerful. That's powerful. I think the thing about childhood ambitions, right, is that they can tell us so much about who we are, even as adults, whether we fulfilled them as not. They talk to us about kind of like the goal-oriented mindset that we had, the sense of purpose that we felt that we may not no longer feel, the motivation, the kind of the growth mindset that we also had. And going back to my wanting to be the president of the US and an astronaut, clearly none of those things are necessarily going to happen. But what they tell me is about my character. I shoot for the top. I like to break boundaries that need to be broken, including silences around corruption and injustice. And in my own way, I began reaching for the stars. So that's what I'm interested in today, what motivated and intrigued you as a child. Tell us in the comments. If you're not here for the live chat, tell us, and I'll pick that up again on Friday. Because the thing is, I think by recalling what you want to do as a child, even if you don't necessarily want to do that now, it will have such a great insight into who you are, and it may well jet propel your ambitions now. Go on an exploration of yourself. Take 10 minutes or so out to explore yourself. Ask yourself questions. What did I want to be when I grow up? And if multiple roles pop up, so for example, some people, for example, might want to be a mum and also might want to be, I don't know, a dancer, multiple roles. And why not? Right. But ask yourself, which one of those filled you with the most excitement and still make you smile even today? Because when I think about the idea that I wanted to be a librarian, clearly my character isn't really suited to being a librarian, right? I'm too loud for a start. But what it tells me about myself is I was interested in knowledge and information. That's what I was interested in. So ask yourself, what excited you about your childhood dream? Was it helping others? Was it being top dog? Was it inspiring others? It doesn't have to be a professional or creative ambition either. Like Mama Bear said, she wanted to be a mum. It could be an emotional one. Maybe from an early age, you knew you wanted to be a mum or a dad. You wanted to get married. You wanted to have children. You want to run an orphanage or an animal sanctuary. I want to do both of those things, by the way. I've talked about this before. I'd like to have some kind of orphanage that also has an animal sanctuary attached to it. I'd love to be able to do that. With proper money, I would do all of that kind of stuff. And just ask yourself, where are you now? Are you happy doing what you're doing? It's never too late to change. It really is never too late to change. And here are some quotes about childhood that may help you. Simplicity. Childhood means simplicity. Look at the world with the child's eye. And that is the thing, is children are not bogged down with the same kind of stuff, right, that we are often as adults. We're thinking about have to pay the bill and have to meet this obligation and this target and everything. Children aren't like that. They're much more raw and kind of ready. And also enjoy the little things, right? One day, I mean, I think a lot of the time when children come from difficult backgrounds, they are so busy surviving that there is no opportunity necessarily for them to enjoy the little things, right? I'm on a catch up in many respects, right? These days, I really appreciate simplicity in my life, whether that's being able to light a open fire at the end of a hard day, have a nice ice cold beer or whatever. I really appreciate the simple things in my life. Fresh coffee in the morning, my dog wagging her tail to see me. All those things mean the absolute world for me. But also remember that childhood should be about exploration. That's why I have a lot of problems with kind of mainstream schooling, because it's so regimented, right? And the idea is obviously for all children to have the same mindset, to be compliant. And I think we've seen, certainly over the last 4 years, the kind of people who will be compliant and those who won't. So I just wanted to reflect on that, who I was as a child, who you are. Beyond belief, wanted to be Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. Total nutter, just wanted to leave school. I think I already quoted that because I thought it was funny. Somebody wanted to be in radio. There's loads of, with me, it was always radio. That's Stephen. And we've gone past 11:11. Yes, we have indeed. So, darling people, it is time to leave you this morning. Been great to have you. Open fire. What's that? Open fire. Sonia, thought you lived in London. Yes, Jeanette. I live in Richmond, but we have a policy in Richmond that as long as it's eco logs and eco coal, we're allowed to have all that. So I have to buy much more expensive stuff for my open fire, but don't try and separate me from an open fire. I would leave. Well, we're in Southwest Greater London, but I would leave London if Sadiq Khan gets his way, right? Open fire and pig's head soup in winter, says Gary. No, I don't have pig's head soup. Lisa, I always wanted a holistic centre and animal sanctuary. Yeah. Yeah, TD, this is nice. What's this? I was conscious of the fact I was bringing up little people who would be adults one day, and so it was important to do my the best for them. I think that's TD. Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. Right, where are we, lovely people? HK Very's in Chiswick. Thank you, Hush. Hush loves the show, and the chat is awesome. I agree. And that is in part due to our fabulous mods. I've got to go, lovely people. TD says, sorry, typos. No worries. Steve said, space is real. It's between most people's ears. Allegedly, Peter says, David Cameron likes pig's heads. Allegedly, Peter. Thank you, Frank. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, of course, to our beautiful mods. Eric is going away and is going to be lonely now. No, don't do that. No. You are all amazing, says our crazy bunny, and our lovely soul sound as well. I will, of course. Oh, I meant to pop this up on the screen when I was just chatting, because I think that we should title this Final Thoughts, right? This segment. There you go. Anyway, listen, have a beautiful, beautiful week. I look forward to seeing you all. Well, not you all, but I look forward to seeing many of you at the Red Lion tomorrow. Very much looking forward to it. Have a tremendous week. I'll see you Friday. Of course, write in your competition. Put comp in the subject headline, and we will pick one person to get this. Sonia Poulton at sky.com. The first one that I pick out after 6 p.m. tomorrow night gets that book. Not this one, another one, because this one's been well thumbed. Take good care of yourself. Thank you very much for being here with me today or on playback. Lots of love to you, and I will see you Friday. Take care, everybody. Love you much.